Excuse me, I'm going to read a few notes to you. I will try and keep it brief. But thank you all for coming to the meeting tonight. For those of you who don't know, my name is Craig Lambourne, and I'm the chairman of the current Spayfest committee and a local resident. And I've been asked to chair your meeting for you tonight. This is the third meeting around Moray that has been held by the Yes campaign. Personally, I'm not a member of any political party. However, this decision is different, and it's about Scotland's future, not which political party will run Scotland. Independence is not something new, something unusual, simply the powers to control our economy, our tax, our spending, and all the powers to make life better for the people of this country. 5.3 million people of all backgrounds in Scotland deserve to get the government they vote for. We have 3 speakers tonight, and there's a slight change to the billed speakers. We have Ariane, Angus and Richard, and James has actually agreed to step aside to let Ariane speak so you can have a woman's perspective tonight. Okay. As a question and answer session tonight, the aim is to give people the opportunity to ask any questions they have. I'm sorry, but this is not a platform for an argument. This is to give you answers to your questions to help you make a decision. I'll now hand over to our 3 speakers. Ariane's going to lead us off, and once everyone has spoken from the table, we'll move on to some questions from you as the night goes on. Okay, thank you.
What's this referendum about? It's about 2 futures for Scotland, and neither of them is business as usual. I'm Ariane Burgess, and I live in Forres. I was born and grew up in Scotland, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else in the world right now. This is a huge time in history of this country and also in the history of democracy. I spent much of my adult life living and working in the United States and moved back to Scotland a few years ago. Having lived in the United States, I think I can offer some perspective from living in another country. I lived in a country that didn't have health insurance, and at times I didn't have health insurance for myself. I lived in a country where my peers were weighed down, paying off huge university and college loans, unable to pursue what they really wanted to do with their lives. I lived in a country where food banks have long been commonplace and worked with people who depended on them. And this was even before the crash of 2008. The thing is that you don't know what you've got until it goes. And what we do know is it's going south of the border. We're also hearing news of the need for food banks now in Scotland, and even cases where they are running out of food. We have a choice. It's a choice about 2 futures. The first is to continue this unraveling of our social fabric by staying in the Union. Or the second, we can vote yes on September 18th and start to define our future, a new future. I believe we have the wealth, intelligence and creativity to do this. I want to make sure that everyone who can vote on the 18th September does this from a place of being well informed. This referendum is way too important for any of us to be voting from a place of fear, habit or misinformation. From now until the 18th of September, there will be issues raised and dramatised by the mainstream media. And we can choose to be buffeted about by them, or we can start to get more informed, which is why we're here tonight. I've had tangible experiences of how the media spins things, so I've gone beyond mainstream, and I've started to engage in thoughtful articles and discussions that are on numerous websites, that support independence for Scotland from a diverse range of perspectives. And I'm going to give you three, but there are loads of them, and it is amazing what's going on out there. So three that I suggest, and maybe some of you already know, are newsnetscotland.com, wingsoverscotland.com, and businessforscotland.co.uk. And if you want those again, ask me afterwards. I don't know about you, but I find it difficult to think effectively in confrontational and adversarial situations. So I've joined with a group in Forres, and we're holding something called referendum conversation cafes. The way we organise these is to have topic-specific tables where we invite all views to be expressed and encouraged. People change tables from time to time to make sure that they cover the topics that matter most to them. These events give me the opportunity to talk in an open and calm atmosphere with neighbours and other local people about the issues a self-governing Scotland raises for each of us, because we all have many issues and concerns. And because of this opportunity to talk in this way and to hear other people's concerns, I feel even more confident that independence is the way for us to go. I encourage you all to organise such events here and really listen to each other. I want to live and participate in shaping a country that is even more democratic than it already is. The world needs this now. I want to live in a country where the power is closer to home, so more of us can have a say in how our lives are shaped locally. And I want to live in a country that is more socially just, because we will all be better off if everyone is better off. When you vote on the 18th of September, make sure that you've moved beyond fear, habit, or misinformation, and you make an informed choice for Scotland's future. Thank you.
That's lovely. Thank you very much, Ariane, and I'll leave it over to Angus.
What a really difficult act to follow, Arian. That was fantastic. Well, fantastic to see so many of you here. This is an event that is billed just as those that we previously held in other communities in Moray, as an evening for undecided voters to come along. Now, there's some of you who maybe are decided. You know, you're definitely voting yes. Maybe some of you are even no voters. But the object of the exercise of these evenings is to allow people to come along and listen to some of the different points of view, because there's more than one point of view in favour of independence, and for you then to ask questions as, for those of you who are undecided, help you cross the bridge and hopefully make a decision between now and the 18th of September, and obviously we hope that it'll help you reach a decision that Scotland, being a normal democratic country, able to make the decisions that other normal countries are able to make, is the best future for all of us. I don't want to speak for very long. I just want to leave you with some very, very basic thoughts. On the 18th of September, the polling stations are going to open at 7 o'clock in the morning, and they're going to close at 10 o'clock at night. And for those hours, the future of our country will be in your hands on this question for the first time ever. It's never been on the ballot paper. We've been able to vote in previous referenda on should Scotland have limited powers of devolution, and we said yes twice. We said yes in 1979. There was a majority in 1979, but then it was refused. And then in 1997, 75% of people in Scotland voted in favour of Scotland having a parliament again with limited powers, so we can make decisions in Scotland with the people we elect on issues such as health and education and transport and justice and agriculture. Not whether our taxes, the majority of the most important taxes, go up or down, not whether we send our young men and women to war or not whether we have nuclear missiles based in our country, not how we deal with the outside world, with our neighbours, our friends, in a European context or the world more generally. That is what we are going to be able to decide on the 18th of September. That our country, our democracy, should mean that we will always have the government we elect. At the present time, only half of the time we actually get the government that we elect in Westminster. In normal countries, in normal democracies, you're always governed by the people you elect. Some few more thoughts for you. Can Scotland be independent? Of course it can. We are no worse off than our closest Northern European neighbours, and they are wealthier than we are. Even David Cameron has said that Scotland can be a successful independent country. He doesn't think we should be that though. So very few people say that we can't. Yes, we can. Should we? I believe we should. Normal countries govern themselves. What we value on these islands as the social union, that means we're not foreigners, whether we're in London, in Edinburgh, in Cardiff or in Dublin, that social union is not dependent on where we make decisions. The proposition on the 18th of September is that decision making should move about Scotland from London to Scotland. That is the proposition. So can we? Yes. Should we? Yes. And then must we? And yes, I believe we must. Why? Because I think we can be more economically successful. Why? Because all of our other neighbours have managed just that. And with the normal levers of economic power, we can have a more successful economy. We must also live in a more socially just country. The United Kingdom is the fourth most unequal country in wealth terms in the industrialised world. And I'm not proud of that. But we can change that. If we have the powers to change it, we can do just that. This is much more than the proposal of a political party, because it's now over to you. Yeah, we're having a referendum because the Scottish National Party, and supported by the Scottish Green Party and independent MSPs, decided by majority in the Scottish Parliament that you should have the vote. But independence is now not about a political party. It's about all of us, all of our views, regardless of which political party we support. One of the really exciting prospects I think we have in Scotland is after a yes vote, we can have a constitution. We can have our own rule book about how we are governed. In the present time in the UK, we don't have that. So there are a myriad of reasons why we should be independent. Can we? Yes. Should we? Yes. Must we? Emphatically, yes. But at the end of this process, we are on the 19th of September going to wake up and ask ourselves, do we have enough confidence in our country? And I think we should have, I think we will have, and I think that's why there will be a yes vote on the 18th of September. But that will only be decided by people like you. So we hope to be able to persuade those of you who are undecided, and we hope we'll be able to secure that yes vote. Not just for this generation, but the generations to come. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Angus. And our final speaker is Richard.
Thank you. Well, it's amazing to see so many people coming out this evening in Fochabers, and we'll try and let you go just in case, within a couple of hours, in case the Northern Lights come back out again. Because I was stuck in Edinburgh last night and I missed them, and I've waited my whole life to see the Northern Lights, and I didn't get back until this morning, because usually I'm back on a Thursday evening and missed them. So hopefully in a couple of hours they'll come back out again and I can get to see them. So thank you very, very much for coming out this evening. So many people here in Fochabers, and no doubt some of the neighbouring communities as well. Scotland's a really exciting place in which to live at the moment. Really exciting. As Ariane, as Angus said, we've got this immense privilege where between the hours of 7 AM and 10 PM the 18th of September, we will be sovereign. We can take a decision, we'll have the vote, and to change our country's future and become an independent country. And many people throughout the world have sometimes had to lay down their lives to secure that right, or they've had all kinds of different histories to get to where they are today. But here in Scotland, we're very lucky. We have a democracy. We've got an agreement between two governments, the UK government and the Scottish government, to give us that right, without one black eye, without one bloody nose, to go to the ballot box and use the vote. So it's a very exciting time in history, and it's a very exciting time to live in Scotland, because we can all participate in that very democratic process. It's not a new process, of course. At the time of the last war, which is not that long ago really when you think about it in terms of time, in 1945 the United Nations was set up. There was only 51 countries. Just think about that. There's only 51 countries. Today, in 2014, there's 193 countries. So people throughout the planet have looked at their circumstances and sometimes felt they want to improve their democracy or change their futures, to do things differently, and they've been through this process. And today there's 193 independent countries in the world who are in the United Nations. Clearly the Yes campaign here in the Fochabers this evening, we want to be the 194th country in the UN. We also want to be the 29th member of the European Union. We've had devolution since 1999 in Scotland, and Angus referred to the benefits that's delivered for Scotland. We can take decisions over our own health service, over education, some issues to do with our environment, our justice system, and so on. And generally, when I speak to people in Scotland, people feel Scotland's a better place because of devolution. We don't always get things right, it's very tough decisions, but generally speaking, most people I speak to think Scotland's a better place because of devolution. But if you scratch the surface of devolved issues, you always find many of the powers lie elsewhere. Many of the powers might lie in London, where what we're trying to do in Scotland might be stopped or frustrated because decisions are taken by different politicians with different priorities in London, or sometimes within Europe, where of course we don't have our own voice, and we don't have the opportunity to speak for ourselves internationally. So independence is about bringing decisions closer to people. It's about trying to make our country a more prosperous country and society to live in, and it's about having choices to do things differently as well as speaking for ourselves internationally. I am a minister in the Scottish Government. I go to international negotiations as part of the UK delegation. Murray's farmers, our fishing sector, the environment sector, many sectors, many decisions are taken in the European Union where we do not have a voice at the top table. And I have to go there as part of a UK delegation that has different priorities to Scotland, and quite often there's a million miles between the priorities of the two administrations. These are real decisions that affect real communities, that affect real people's livelihoods, and we're not there to stand up for ourselves. And of course that's just the European Union. There's many other international issues where Scotland would like to have its own distinctive say, such as when we go to war and as when we don't go to war. So it's about democracy, it's about prosperity, it's about self-respect, self-esteem in Scotland, standing up for ourselves, becoming a much more confident country. And between the hours of 7 AM and 10 PM on 18th of September, we'll have the opportunity to become a normal independent country and be responsible for our own decisions. And the premise of the independence argument of the Yes campaign, which is not about politicians, it's not about Alex Salmond, it's not about the Scottish Government, it's about all parties. There's people from all parties supporting Yes. It's about your choice of who the next independent government of Scotland would be. But it's about putting the decisions into people's hands, and it's about saying that the people who live in Scotland are the people best placed to take decisions over their own future. So there's a yes vote on the 18th of September. The negotiations for independence start on that day, and for 18 months we will negotiate to become a member state of the European Union and an independent country in their own right, in time for Independence Day in March 2016. So during that 18-month negotiations, we'll still be part of the UK, we'll still be part of Europe, as we work out the detail in terms of membership of Europe and the share of assets and liabilities with the rest of the UK. And then, after that, we'll have control over our own destiny in Scotland. So I hope, obviously, as a Yes campaigner, we use both hands and grasp that fantastic opportunity to secure a better future for all of you, for all of us, for our communities, for our country, for our children, and for our children's children as well. and for the future of Scotland. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you very much. You've heard what our speakers have to say. What I'd like to do now is actually open up to the floor with a show of hands for questions. We have someone going around with a microphone, so if I can see anyone that's got our first question, just to lead us off. So if you want to go round across this side here. Gentleman on the right, yeah.
Hi, I've got a question about the Europe side of it, because what's the benefit of Scotland being, well, first of all, does Europe come automatically as an aspiration if we vote yes? And if it does, what's the benefit of being attached to the rest of the UK who are attached to Europe as opposed to being attached to Europe who have got the UK as part of it? What's the big benefit of being in Europe?
Okay, so that's the first question on Europe, and then we'll get a show of hands for a second question. Gentleman just in the middle there.
Yeah, well, man.
Yep, gentleman there.
Yeah. Okay. Just a moment. I won't eat it. It's all right. I won't eat it.
It's just for the people at the back to hear you, that's all.
Oh yeah. Okay. Right. We all went to school, and when we went to school, we all heard about Culloden and Bannockburn. Our forebears, they all fought for freedom for us. Where we are today, now we're changing it. Why are we changing it? Why are you changing that? What we now enjoy, a good country, with everything for us.
Okay.
This area, Scotland, yes, is great, marvellous. We'll need a lot of things. And we have the best of things. And I needn't describe them because I think we all know what they are.
Okay, so a question on our history there. Okay guys, I'll let you take it on.
Oh, are we better using the microphone? So first off, on the issue of Europe, can I start where Richard left off on the process of things? If you haven't had the opportunity yet, can I urge you, please, to order, doesn't cost, order or download online the copy of the white paper. And what this is the prospectus of what the current Scottish Government will negotiate between 2014 and 2016. And if it were to be re-elected, then deliver on. Our view is, we think the benefits of remaining within the European Union, the single market, the peace, the prosperity it brings, there are shortcomings of course, but we believe that remaining within the European Union is the best place for Scotland to be. That's our view. But after 2016, if people would wish to change that, you can elect a party in a parliament in Scotland to change that if you wish.
Does it stack up economically? It's not just going to be a drain for all our prosperity, you know, bailing out other countries who have
Okay. I'm sure I'm going to be told off for taking interjections, but no, it's fine, I'll answer your point. On balance, because you have to view these things on balance, is it beneficial, particularly for a part of the world like Moray, which is so heavily dependent on export industries? We're not that far away from Baxter's, we're not that far away from Walker's, we're not that far away from the fourth largest exporting industry of the United Kingdom, which is the Scotch whisky industry. Operating in a single market is hugely important. Now some people say, why wouldn't we choose to do the same thing as Norway? So it is part of the single market, but it's not part of the European Union. The difference is they have to enact every single piece of European legislation without having any influence on it whatsoever. Now this is a wider discussion perhaps about how good the EU is or how not good the EU is, and it has shortcomings. But on balance, all of the polls show that in Scotland, the majority of people would wish to remain within the EU. The biggest danger in relation to Europe has nothing to do with what's going on in Scotland, but everything to do with what's going on in Westminster. Because unfortunately you have an ever-growing Eurosceptic and very powerful influence on the Conservative Party that wants a referendum to get us out, regardless of whether we want to leave or not. So that's the biggest danger for us. On Culloden and on history, people have laid down their lives that we can live in freedom and in democracy. That's absolutely right, sir. Absolutely right. Do I think we can improve the democracy that we live in, our society? Yes, I do. I think we can still, there's a lot that we can do to make Scotland better, and that's why we think having the toolbox to be able to make the changes that we think we need is exactly the right way to go. We live in a great place, but it can be a lot better. It can be a lot better.
Will Europe agree to that?
So, for the benefit of people at the back of the room, will Europe agree to that? Yes, Europe will agree to it. There is not a single country that has said it will exercise a veto against Scotland remaining within the European Union. Nobody serious is saying that Scotland will not be in the European Union. We're a democracy. The EU is based on the rule of law and democracy. Is there a discussion to be had about the mechanism by which one remains within the European Union? Of course. But nobody serious is saying that Scotland will not be in the EU.
Okay,
Forgive me,
bear with us, just bear with us. We'll do it with a show of hands. There's a lot of people here that have a lot of questions. So we'll just keep it moving just now. So the gentleman in the blue shirt there, I'll come back to you in a wee while and give everybody the opportunity to speak. It's a little bit tight, but there we go.
Good evening. Like everything else, money is the key, the cornerstone for the way we live. And as you say, everything is going to be negotiated. How can we, at this point in time, know where we're going to be in terms of which currency and what the proportion of the loan that UK has, what are we going to get? Because if I was UK, if I was England, and you want to break away from me, I might very well say, if you want to break away, your share of the loan is X. How can you give us reassurance of what we're taking on financially?
Okay, it's a question on money, so I'll show of hands again, we'll get one more question. James will just come back. The gentleman just at the side in the glasses there.
What will happen with regard to our citizenship?
Okay, and a question on citizenship. I'll hand over.
Your question is a very good question, because people will have questions in their head, like the ones you just asked. What does it mean for me? What will it mean for what Scotland looks like in terms of economically post a yes vote? So, as I was saying when I was speaking, as others were, it's a democratic vote. The unusual dimension to what's happening in Scotland just now is that it's agreed between the UK government and the Scottish government. Often independence movements across the planet are carried out against a backdrop of resistance. Either the larger state does not want the part of the state to have a referendum, doesn't want anything to give any concession. In Scotland we have an agreement between the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and Scotland in terms of the Scottish Government. And that is that both sides will respect the result. So that gives us a couple of consequences. Firstly, it means Europe will take notice of that, because the UK government have said they will respect the result of the referendum in Scotland in terms of EU membership, in terms of negotiations, etc. And the second consequence is, when it comes to negotiations within the UK, we'll all be mature about it. Post a yes vote, the Scottish government, the UK government will sit round the table, and it's a negotiation. Because Scotland will have expressed the democratic right to become independent, the rest of the UK will have to respect that. It's not a case of one side can say to the other side, you're not getting this. It's a negotiation. It happens in Europe all the time, it happens around the world. It's what democratically elected governments do, is they negotiate until they reach a deal. And that's what will happen post the yes vote. Both governments will sit down and negotiate until they reach a deal. Now, if you read the newspapers or watch the television, as I unfortunately do, I have to do as part of my job, you will think it's a blank sheet of paper Scotland's starting with, and we have to start from scratch. And of course that's not the position. It's assets and liabilities you're negotiating. So negotiation between the UK and Scotland is over assets. We've paid our taxes for generations into the UK assets, we own part of them. And likewise, the Scottish Government's position is we'll also negotiate the liabilities. and both governments will have to take that approach. Therefore, it will be a sensible, mature negotiation over the share of the debt, the national debt, which we said will have to take a share. There's one or two ways you can calculate that according to convention. One is a per capita, or one is, you know, in terms of your contribution building up, or whatever it is. So there's ways of negotiating these things. And likewise, the assets. Scotland owns our share of the UK's assets, and they will stay in Scotland and be negotiated. So, can anyone give you the pounds and pence? Of course not, because it's subject to negotiation. But it will be a mature, sensible negotiation that both sides will have signed up to.
So it doesn't answer the question.
What?
It doesn't answer the question of how we will be financially.
Well, in terms of... Okay, that's the second question. You were asking about national debt. In terms of how Scotland will stack up economically. Well, Scotland pays its own way within the UK at the moment. If you look at the last 30 years, we've paid more per head of population in terms of tax take to the UK Treasury than any other part of the UK. And over the last 5 years, we've been a £12.6 billion surplus. So we pay our own way. And I have to say, even I was astounded when the Financial Times put that on their front page a few weeks ago and said Scotland pays more its own way, here's our worked out statistics. Even the Financial Times. They've actually got a website with about 50 tables on it set up about Scottish independence, looking at the economic situation of Scotland. Therefore, we pay our own way. Even if you take oil out of the equation, our per capita contribution is roughly the same as the rest of the UK. If you add oil in, we're way above the rest of the UK, we pay our surplus. So we're not even oil dependent. There's a big myth in the news just now, we're oil dependent. If you look at the Norwegians, they get 30% of their income from oil. Obviously the country with the highest standard of living in the world, and one of the wealthiest, if not the wealthiest country in the world. In Scotland, our income would be 15% from oil. So we're not even nearly as oil dependent as what Norway would be in terms of reliance as that as an income stream. So we pay our own way as a country. We can economically make a go of it. To me, independence is not just the pounds and pence on day one of independence. It's what you do with the powers thereafter to create more wealth and prosperity, which we can't do just now in the Scottish Parliament. The Scottish Parliament at the moment has control of 7% of our revenues. 7%. Independence gives you a 100% control of your revenues. So you can do a lot more, and that's what being independent is all about.
Just one postscript on national wealth. When measured against OECD countries, Scotland comes in as the 8th wealthiest in the world. The UK averages at 16. So we're a country that's well off. Yes, we need to go through a process of transition, but we have very, very solid foundations. To your question, sir, where were you, the question about citizenship? Happy to show you afterwards if you wanted to go through all the detail, but on page 273 of the white paper is the detail on citizenship. It's an inclusive model, so people who are British citizens who live here, British citizens elsewhere, automatically, if one wishes Scottish citizenship, can have it. And there's a whole further series of considerations for those who don't fall into those two categories. Scotland, unlike many other parts of the world, our historic problem isn't immigration, it's emigration. So the citizenship model is one that is inclusive for people who are here, and the details outlined in the document there.
If you have somebody who's living and working in England and decides they want to come and live and work in Scotland, do they have to apply for Scottish citizenship?
Well,
our passports say that we are a United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. You'll no longer be part of the United Kingdom.
Yeah, well, first off, nobody can be deprived of their existing citizenship rights, so a continuing UK passport will remain in force, and for those who wish to retain having a UK passport, that's something that people can do. But you asked a question specifically, sir, about Scottish citizenship, and it's one that is going to be open for all UK citizens and those with a connection to Scotland, and the details outlined in the document. I'm happy to show you that. Okay.
Okay, can I get a show of hands? We'll get another 2 questions. So the gentleman in the yellow shirt just in the middle.
I think one of the biggest tragedies of the last few decades has been